So I had a Go dream the other day, not the dream that I have of becoming a Dawn player, but like an actual dream while I was asleep. And I don't know if I've ever had a Go dream before. This might be the first Go dream that I've ever had, and I want to share it with you. It was kind of an interesting dream. So I was walking through this place with a lot of people. It almost seemed like, I don't know, some kind of community center, or there were various rooms and activities going on. I think the place that I ended up in had like a screen and people were watching things. But in this room, which kind of in my head didn't really have a ceiling either, but you know, that's kind of how dream logic works. There was this girl sitting in front of a Go board, and I immediately sat down in front of the board without thinking, just ready to play, because this wasn't a Go convention or a Go tournament or anything like that. I was surprised to see a Go board there, and I sat down in front of her immediately, and she asked me if I wanted to play, and I said yes. And then she asked me what color I wanted to be, and I said I don't care, like I don't whether it's black or white. And she also said she didn't care. So I said, okay, I'll be white. I guess in my head, this person was not a super strong player for whatever reason, and I thought that I was deserving of the white stones. But the reason for that, I think, is the board layout itself and the stones. The stones were these irregular, like almost like pieces of gravel or something. Really irregular, really random shapes. And furthermore, the whole board was covered in small stones, almost like a Zen rock garden, but messier. There was no order to it. It didn't seem like it was intentional. I think there were some spots that were not really covered, but it was just this mess of like stones up on a board, and we're supposed to play on it. And so I asked her, I mean, you couldn't see the lines, right? So I guess you just play, you guess where the lines are, like you just kind of figure it out, even though you can't see the lines. And she responded, yes, you just guess. So here we start to play Go on this board without lines, just guessing where the lines are, I guess. And a few moves in, she takes one of the white stones and puts it on the board. And if you recall, and if you were paying attention, I chose the white stones, and I was the white stone player, and she took one of my stones. And I asked her why she did that, and she explained that she just plays how people want to play, or she lets people play the way they want to play. And I got into a little bit of an argument, explaining to her, like, there are actual rules to the game. You can't just grab the other player's stones. And I was concerned that she was teaching Go to other players or to new players this way and not really doing it properly. And it got into a slight, argument about that. And then I don't know what else happened in the dream. It just evaporates from that point on. But I don't know. It was a strange dream. I have a lot of strange dreams, but this was the first one I can recall with Go in it. You're listening to Starpoint, the show about Go for Go fans away from the board. In today's episode, I got to give thanks to some listeners, namely Mouton, for suggesting a Go-adjacent board game episode. I realize I have played a lot of board games in my board game career. I used to play more when I had a regular group where we would just get random board games and play them out whenever we had some time to kill. Nowadays, I don't play these board games as much, but I do recall very vividly a lot of them. I still love playing board games and picking up the new one every now and then to just kind of learn. And I wanted to share the ones that I've played in my head, library of games that I've played, which ones kind of have something related to Go and how it relates to Go. So, buckle up. First one I got is Carcassonne. So Carcassonne I highly recommend this game. It is a great game. it's a tile laying game. So you draw a tile from a pile, and the tile will have some illustration on it with some combination of road, castle, monastery. What else is there? Field, just a field, right? And then there are different configurations. It's a square tile, and the roads may connect from one side to another. The castle may cover all like 3 of the 4 sides of the tiles. And so as you place a tile down on each turn, you have to connect it, kind of like dominoes, I guess, but it's kind of cooler than dominoes, I think. You have to connect the like parts with like parts. So a road must connect into another road. And that's the simple action of the game. And the way you get points for it is completing certain arrangements. So let's say you have a road that's going nowhere, and then your piece ends that road because it turns into a road that goes into the doors of a castle or something. Then you get points for the length of that road, and there are many other combos that you can get and get points for. But I think this is kind of a Go-like game because there is some claiming of points that has to do with where you place these tiles, which kind of reminds me of how you place stones on a board. In fact, there's another piece to the points calculations in this game where you put a farmer on a field, and that field is basically just whatever borders that field, whether it's the road or castles. And then if it's completely enclosed, that is one body of field. And that definitely feels like a Go mechanic to me. But I think mostly the fact that you're taking turns placing down a single tile has a very Go-like ritual for me. But the thing is, this game is multiplayer. I think it's up to 4 players, if I'm not mistaken. There may be expansions that make it more. But I think tile laying games in general, most of them are like word-based, like Scrabble or Bananagrams. But Carcassonne, it feels more spatial. And the thing that I get from Carcassonne that is satisfactory that Go also has is this idea of creating an image, a new map. So when you play Carcassonne, so Carcassonne is a city in France. And so what you're doing by placing these tiles is creating a landscape. And every time you place down the tiles with your friends, you create this new landscape, a new picture of Carcassonne. And it's very much like Go in the way that at the end of the game, you have something to look at, a landscape of territories and points, and it's unique every time. You have this like city-looking thing, and I think that's really cool. Another game that comes to mind that's tile laying is also King Domino. So that's another one that's I think it's a little less like Go, but it's also really fun. And then thinking about this Carcassonne game in context of Go, made me think, like, what if you could play Go without a board? And this kind of relates to my dream, right? So what if you actually did play Go without lines? And maybe furthermore, is there a way to get Go to work where you have to attach every stone to an existing stone so that it branches out from the center, and that's how you play? I don't know. It doesn't seem like it would work right away. Maybe you would have some adjustments to the rules. Maybe one of you guys can figure it out. Another game, this is another one that I mentioned on that listener mail response, is Hive. So one of the listener mails was actually about Hive. So Hive is a 2-player game, and it also has the element of placing things down on a table every turn. So this one is bug themed, and you get 11 hexagonal tiles, and you take turns placing them. And each tile has a different like bug symbol on it, whether it's a queen bee, which is the most important, the spider, the ant, a grasshopper, and the beetle. Now, each of these tiles moves slightly differently. So every turn you can take a tile and put it down, or you can move a tile according to the way it moves. And the point of the game is to move all your bugs to your opponent's queen bee tile and surround it, including their tiles, right? So if they have some tiles around their queen bee, and you put your own tiles in and surround all of the 6 I guess as a hexagon, sides of the queen bee, then you win. You basically capture the queen. Sounds like another game, right? So just to give you some more flavor and detail about how this works, and so you can kind of visualize. So let's say you're placing down these bug tiles one by one, and you have to attach it to an existing tile. The spider can move exactly 3 spaces without backtracking. And movement in this there's no grid that you place this on. It's just the tiles on a table. And so the movement is like, it just goes from side to side. The ant can kind of move any number of spaces around the hive. It's good for just getting from one place to the other, and it just along the perimeter. The grasshopper jumps in a straight line over one or more pieces, landing in the first empty space. The beetle moves one space, like the queen, which I didn't explain. The queen only moves one space per turn. The beetle moves one place like the queen, but can climb on top of other pieces, pinning them in place. So that's an interesting dimension that Go doesn't have, where the piece can actually go on top. It also reminds me of Upwards. I don't know if anyone's played Upwards, which is a Scrabble variant, where you can stack letters on top of other letters to make new words. But I think Hive, other than the fact that it has the taking turns to place things down element, and then surrounding the queen to play the game, or to win the game element, those things I think are very Go-esque. But other than that, I think it also has a very meditative quality that Go has. The pieces are really nice and thick, and they're just pleasant to hold on to and use. And I think Go has that as well. So if you like a dueling abstract game, I highly recommend Hive. It's an interesting one for sure. I'm not good at it because I've only played like a few games of it. But the times that I've played, it is an interesting game. And I think I'm undefeated, to be honest, because I've only played with a couple people who are mildly interested. And the fact that I'm a Go player, I think helps. The fact that you know how to kind of anticipate moves and calculate a little bit, it gives you a slight edge over other people who don't play abstract strategy games. And so I think I'm out of the small handful of games that I've played, I think I'm undefeated in Hive, even though I am no good at it. Okay, next game I really, really like. This game I actually never thought I would like until I played it, and it's called Blockus. You may have heard of it. It's Blokus. There's also a dual version. So Blockus is typically 4 players, I believe, and the dual version is just a 2-player with a smaller board. And Blockus is very Go-esque because, well, the game is played on a grid, and you have these pieces of a color, kind of like stones. But the thing is that imagine it's Go, but then your stones are already linked up into predetermined shapes, kind of like Tetris Go, a listener mentioned a while back as a variant. So your pieces are these plastic arrangements of squares in different formations. You have small pieces, like you even have a single square shape. You have big pieces that are several squares, and they can form an L or a zigzag, or it doesn't matter, whatever arrangement that a square pattern can allow. And you take these pieces and you place them, you start off in a corner of the board, like Go, right? You start off, but this is like a mandatory in Blockus. You have to start on one of the corners. And you place your pieces down, you take turns, and you start spreading across the board. Now, first-time player of Blockus may not really know this intuitively, but it's good to spread your pieces across the board. The only difference here between Go and Blockus is that in Go, yes, it's good to spread your pieces across the board, but you can do one corner and then that corner and then this corner. You can do it randomly. In Blockus, you have to keep your pieces connected. So connection means from corner to corner. Each of your pieces must have a corner in common with another one of your pieces, and it cannot have an adjacent square with one of your pieces, meaning it can have a corner connect, which is mandatory, but it can't have 2 of the sides of any of the parts of your pieces butt up against any of the sides of your pieces. So you're kind of forced to spread out in a way, but there are definitely ways you can prevent that and be more compact. The thing is that's really interesting about Blockus is that although you're not allowed to have your own pieces butt up against your own pieces in terms of the sides, you are allowed to have them butt up against your opponent's pieces. So as you spread out, what happens is you start, you're going to have to look at the way the game is played in order to really get a complete picture of this, but I'm trying to, the best I can to explain it. Your pieces will start interlocking with your opponent's pieces as you spread out, and that's how you skip over into your opponent's territory and place down more pieces. The goal of the game is to place down all of your pieces before your opponent. You quickly learn that the small pieces are super valuable because they have the most flexibility and they can be placed in more positions than the larger pieces. So I looked at this game. It just looked like a bunch of color blocks on a grid, and I didn't think it would be interesting. I've played it, and I really, really like it. It's probably one of my favorite abstract modern games out there. And I think that usually other people like it too. It's pretty popular with even non-serious, non-abstract thinking players. It's pretty intuitive to play. And it's really satisfying to get that one piece nestled in your opponent's pieces. So in this one, I really think it has a lot to do with Go. The way you have to spread out and try to take up as much space and make it as inconvenient for your opponent to place pieces as possible, while also maximizing your own efficiency. I think it is definitely a contender for one of the most Go-like games out there, even though it's very, very different. All right, the next one I have here on my list is actually more of a chess-like game, but I think it deserves to be on the list because it is an abstract game, and definitely that abstract one-on-one aspect of it has a Go feeling as well, even though it's more of a chess game. This game is called Onitama. Onitama is really like chess because you have a king and you have some pawns, no other pieces, no rooks, no knights, no bishops, and you only have 5 pieces total. And the goal is to either capture the opponent's king or get your own king to the other side of the board in the middle square. It's a 5x5, so it's a lot smaller than chess. It looks a lot simpler than chess. So you're asking, how is it like chess, and how, other than the goals? What's cool about this is it's not the same every time you play it. So what happens is you have a deck of cards, a small deck of cards. You shuffle it up and you take out a few cards, and each card has a little bit of a description of how a piece could move. And they're really cool themes. Like there's like a monkey, so hey, monkey jump, hey, go thing. There's like a snake, and each of these animals, I believe they're the 12 zodiac symbol animals. They have a specific pattern. Oh, actually, I don't think they are, because there's a crab. So the crab, I don't know if you like imagine like how a crab chess piece would move. Just imagine, like, what would you put for a crab chess piece? Maybe something side to side. The crab card in Onitama, it does go side to side. It goes either 2 spaces right or 2 spaces left, or 1 space up. And then you have the tiger, which is like 1 space back or 2 spaces up. So it's kind of like this pouncing motion. And so all the pieces have this flavor to them. Well, these are not pieces. I've gotten them ahead of myself. These are cards describing how these animals should move, and you use these cards to move your pawns. So when you use a mantis card, for example, you can use your pawn to move in any of the configurations that a mantis is allowed to move, and then you cycle that card out and take a new card. And so this makes the game a lot more random. And get this, you only get to use 5 cards per game. So you put away all the other cards, you take 2 cards, your opponent takes 2 cards, and then there's 1 more card that's shared as a shared pool card. And when you use your own card, it goes into the shared pool card. You take the shared pool card, and your opponent now has access to that shared pool card after they make their move. So you have a lot of thinking to do. Like, do I want to make this elephant move right now? Maybe I do, but if I use this elephant in a couple turns, my opponent will have the elephant move, and they can use it to do something else to me. So it's really fun. It's really a lot of replayability because you can shuffle up the cards. Next game, totally new rule set, totally different patterns of movement, and it's a lot of fun. It's a quick game too. It's a 1v1, kind of like a mini chess, and so it also reminds me of the Cards Go game that I mentioned in the Go Variants episode. Where you have a deck of cards and there are certain shapes that you can play. I wonder if there would be a workable Go variant that's kind of like Cards Go, except instead of dictating a whole shape, the card would show you what spacing you would have to place your next stone from either your own stone or from your opponent's stone. So for example, like you draw a one space jump card, meaning you have to make some kind of one space jump from your own stone or your opponent's stone, and that's the only kind of move you're able to play. Or you draw a card that is a Kosumi card, you draw a Large Knight's Move card. I feel like that could maybe work and maybe be interesting, or maybe it's a dud. I don't know. You can't really tell until you actually play it. All right, next game is one that is a classic and probably the most likely to have been heard of by any number of you, and it's called Risk. Now, I think Risk actually does have a lot of Go feel to it because Risk, so if you don't know how Risk works, I'm sure you've seen it at the supermarket or wherever. Risk is a world domination war game, but in the beginning of the game, you have these army men and you set up on the board, you take turns placing your army men on different countries all across the board, and then you start adding people to armies, you start rolling dice to battle, and your size of your army gives you more dice to take down other armies that may be smaller size and have less dice to defend with. And so it's a game of luck, it's a game of strategy, so the luck element is definitely not in Go, right? That's taken out of Go. But what the part I think is most like Go in Risk is the initial setup where you're spreading your armies all across the world. You take turns doing that, and you start claiming certain countries to start off the war. But the key thing here is that there is a very specific way you should be trying to aim at taking these countries, because if you conquer an entire continent, you get a bonus that gives you more army men every turn. And so I used to win against beginners at Risk just by taking the right areas in the beginning of the game and getting that bonus early on and just steamrolling my opposition with that knowledge. And so just from opening knowledge and Risk, that can make or break the game, which is also kind of a downer on the game because, if someone's playing for the first time, they don't know how the setup works, and they just kind of place all their armies in like random places, and you decide to coordinate yours to take certain combos. Yeah, they're not going to really have a chance, and that whole game is pretty much ruined. So I haven't played Risk in a long time. It takes a while, and it's really not in vogue right now. But I think that opening spreading of the landscape element really does remind me of Go. I wonder if there's a way to put chance elements in Go, like the dice rolling, whether you can, like, maybe Co's, right? You could say, like, once you get into a Co situation, you flip a coin, and whoever wins the coin flip wins the Co, or something like that. Or maybe you can go even further and have it every move you make, you roll a die, and if you get a 6, that move has to be like one space to the left or right or something like that. I don't know. Chance elements are always fun for games to make them more casual. I don't know if you remember, I think I've shared with you the Mario Kart theory that I have, which is the, well, it's not really my theory. I read it somewhere, but Mario Kart is so fun because there's all that randomness in it, and yet it's still a skill game. So when you win, you feel like you won because you're good at Mario Kart. But if you lose, it's because you just got unlucky. Somebody got a blue shell, and you can, what can you do when you get blue shelled at the last second? So there is that balance, so everybody ends up happy. The losers think it's luck, the winners think it's skill, and everyone just ends up happy. That's why it's so hard to play Go, because Go, when you lose, it's all your fault. There was no luck element that kind of put you behind. So you really need to have a strong sense of self playing Go. Alrighty, next one is another game that I've mentioned on the podcast before. This one is called Hex. Apparently it's also called Nash, and rightfully so, because it's invented by John Nash and was actually a deleted scene in A Beautiful Mind. Hold your horses. Actually, might not have been invented by John Nash. So, another name for this was John, referring to the fact that the game could be played on hexagonal bathroom tiles. But just a side note, this game was actually invented by Danish mathematician Pete Hein. As Polygon reports, in a later letter to Hein, Gardner, featured in his mathematical games column, also wrote, "Just between you and me, and off the record," it's funny how it's off the record because I'm reading this now on the record, "I think you hit the nail on the head when you referred to a flash of suggestion which came to Mr. Nash from a Danish source, and which he later forgot about. It seems the most likely explanation." So Pete Hein wrote to what's his name? Gardner, who wrote a mathematical games column featuring Hex, crediting it to John Nash, saying, "No, I invented the game," and I'm pretty sure John Nash just like saw some Danish person play this game and thought it was his own idea. He could have easily, invented the game separately. That does happen. But apparently this Gardner person, this writer, was in agreement with Hein in the fact that, or in the thought that John Nash did not actually invent this game and subconsciously ingested it from the Pete Hein version of the game, which was actually called Contactix by Parker Brothers. It was actually marketed as a Parker Brothers game. So enough about who invented this game. This game is played on an 11 by 11 rhombus board with a hexagonal grid, kind of like Hive, but Hive actually didn't have a grid. It was just freeform. This one actually has a grid, and the game is to place, I don't know what you call them, hexagons? Hexes? Yeah, hexes. Place hexes down on the grid, trying to create a continuous link from one side to the other. And so you have one player from east-west and the other player from north-south, kind of like that. And you have to take turns placing down these hexagons, and if you connect your two sides in a single continuous line from one to the other, you win the game. It's a really interesting game. I would love to try it. I just don't know anyone who has a hex board lying around. And the fact that you place down pieces on a grid definitely reminds me of Go, and also the theme of connectivity and implied connectivity, because that's something that Go has, where you put down, let's say, a one-space jump as the most basic example. That is generally considered connected until, it gets a little more complicated. But the reason why we do a one-space jump is that it's not that easy to disconnect, even though the stones are separated, right? You try to wedge it, you get Atari'd, and then you can have a few options of connecting up that one space jump. It's not a perfect connection, of course. But in Hex, I think you're essentially doing the same thing. You're placing down these pieces and you're implying these connections, and you're trying to find a way to connect your pieces in flexible ways. So that one side to the other connection part is the part that's unique to Hex. I think that's definitely not a theme in Go where you're trying to connect your stones all across the board or anything like that. But what this game reminds me of is a modern equivalent called Ticket to Ride. Many of you may have heard of this one. This one's also a little more mainstream than some of the others I've talked about today. But Ticket to Ride is like a modernized, I would say maybe like, it's kind of Eurogame territory in my mind, but it's a little more like if you were to put games on a spectrum from Eurogame to Ameritrash, I would put Ticket to Ride as a more Ameritrash version of Hex, because there's a lot more theme added into it. But basically, Ticket to Ride is a train track building game. I mean, train tracks or trains? Are you building trains across America? Or are you? I don't know. Train tracks, I guess, is the thing. But then I think the pieces you put down are actual trains, so it's kind of funny. So this game is there's like a map, right? And there's lots of versions. There's a European version, there's an American version. But there's cities all across the map, and then there are connecting routes from city to city, many nodes, right? Many nodes with many connecting points. And you have to place down little train cars connecting from city to city. And you have hidden goal cards that dictate which city to which city will give you bonus points. And of course, you get other points for different connections and things like that. But what happens is, as you place these down, and I think most people, when they play Ticket to Ride, they just kind of focus on their own goals. They don't really look at their opponent and disrupt their opponent. As you start placing these down, you'll notice that your opponent is starting to take routes that you need in order to get to your city, and that makes you angry. That's what happens in Ticket to Ride. You start playing and you want to do what you want to do, and your opponent starts doing what they want to do, and you start fighting, because that's what a game is, right? Your goals kind of clash with each other. But most people, they just kind of focus on their own goal in Ticket to Ride, and it's advantageous to really think about whether it's worth disrupting. What's cool about Ticket to Ride, though, is that, or maybe not cool. What's cool about Ticket to Ride is, since it can be more than 2 players, you have this thing where you give the responsibility of messing up other people's plans to other players, because you don't want to mess up their plan, because that messes up your plan to take up a whole turn to not invest into your own train. So you want the other player to mess up the other player's plan, because they're going to win if they don't. And so this whole thing happens, and then that player just ends up winning anyway, because no one wants to step up and mess them up. Or somebody steps up and messes them up. They end up losing because they've invested their time on messing somebody else up. And it's a whole thing. But anyway, it's a fun game. It's a pretty basic one. But I think that's kind of in the spirit of Go as well, where you're just trying to make points sometimes. You just want to spread across the board, and your opponent will take the spots that you want it to take. And this is the thing. Your key point is the opponent's key point, or vice versa. Your opponent's key point is your own key point. That is a proverb in Go, and that kind of reminds me of some interactions in Ticket to Ride. The thing that really distinguishes Ticket to Ride from Go is that it's there's hidden information, where you don't know what your opponent's necessarily trying to do. You don't know if they're trying to build from Chicago to LA or from New York to LA, right? You just know kind of they're branching out from LA in that general direction, and you just kind of have to figure out which way is going to block the path for them. That is something that Go does not have. Maybe there's a way to incorporate that kind of element, like, I don't know, somehow implementing some kind of fog of war where you don't always know what move the other group needs to live. Maybe there are some hidden shapes that live, and you don't know what the opponent's hidden shape is. I don't know. It seems difficult to develop, that's for sure. So those are some of the most Go-like games that I've played in my library of games. Other games that I haven't played that could be Go-like, Tak was mentioned by listener mail, and Yinch. Those two are beautiful looking abstract strategy games that I've never gotten around to playing. So if anyone wants to tell me if they're Go-like at all, let me know in the comments. Stratego as well. I've never played that, but it kind of seems like a Go thing. And then there's this other game called what's it called, Othello or Reversi? I don't know. It just looks like Go to me. So those games, we don't have to pay attention to to those two. But actually, okay, I have played those games, or Othello and Reversi. They're the same game. I actually have played that, of course. There is some Go-like quality to it as well, but it's not Go. It's not Go. What's beautiful about Go is all these games, they have so many great elements to them. I love all the different mechanics, the variation that they have. But Go, I think, is really the perfect abstraction of all the best mechanics out of all of these games. Of course, it's not going to be the most casual game. It's not really the game that you're going to whip out at a party for somebody who's just visiting and just wants to play a casual time-killing thing, and they've never played Go before. They've never played any other game before. It's not really the game you would whip out for that, but I think Go captures the beauty of all the amazing mechanics that all these other games try to implement, and just expresses the balance of what a game should be. And when I put down a move, it has so much meaning in that move just from where it is placed on the board. And I think that is really what makes Go so special. Now, these games are great. I recommend all of them, I think. Let me see if I have any of these that I don't recommend. I think I recommend all of them. If you the one I would maybe... Oh, I haven't played Hex, so I can't recommend that. And then Risk. Risk is a little bit old-fashioned, a little bit outdated, but I remember having a lot of fun with it. Just make sure when you're setting up, you know the basic strategy, or you and your opponent have a basic understanding of what you need to go for, because that could ruin the game. It's kind of like Catan, right? In Catan, I also think that your initial setup can really determine the result of the game, and it's kind of dumb. It's kind of like losing on Joseki in Go. So you want to avoid those situations. But other than that, yeah, I think these are all great games. I will give a special shout out to Blockus. If you haven't played Blockus, that's a good one. Okay, so more board games I want to talk about here, though, right after this. Let's learn to watch Baduk TV. Today's word is pozak. Again, that's pozak, and that means fuseki. So when you're watching Baduk TV, listen to when they're commenting on the opening, and if they say the word pozak, then you know they're talking about fuseki, or the opening. It literally means the spread or arrangement of stones. So that's the word of the day, pozak. Now, I told you guys that I had some more board games that I wanted to talk about, and these are also games that I have never tried before. In fact, I've never even seen them on the shelves, but there's something very special about them. They were designed by our very own Sedol. So Sedol, after he retired, went on to take on the challenge of designing not one, not two, but 3 board games that appeared in a thematic line, a royal line of sorts, as you'll tell by the names. But the games are pretty abstract, so I want to tell you about the rules of these games. Again, I haven't tried them before, but let's talk about them. So the first one is called King's Crown, and this is a 5 in a row type of game. You're trying to get 5 in a row on a 5x5 board, which is simple enough. But you start off with a token drafting phase. Now, this token drafting phase involves reaching a hand in a bag, taking out 2 tokens, looking at them. They're going to be either gold or silver, and they're also going to have a number on them. And you're going to choose which token you want. And then the other token you're going to put face down on the table. Your opponent is going to do the same thing. Except now they have the option of, instead of reaching in the bag, they can also flip over the one that you put face down on the table just now. Your opponent will, if they have taken both tokens from the bag, choose one of those and then put the other one face down with a growing pile of now 2 face down tokens. Or if they chose to look at the one that you put face down, they put another one face down, and that pile remains 1. But as time goes on, people aren't always going to be grabbing the ones that are face down on the table. They're going to be grabbing from the bag. You're going to have a table pool that will grow with the number of face down tokens on there. But the face up part of the drafting phase, it's public, so people see which tokens you saw. And so the point of this phase is a bit of a memory game. You're trying to remember which tokens were put face down in the public pool, and see if that's something that you want to add to your drafted tokens, because you think that number and color token will go well with your board. Once you have drafted all your tokens, now it's time to play 5 in a row on the 5x5 board. Of course, there are some stipulations. When you put down a token, and it's an alternating turn game, so you each take turns putting down a single token on the board. When you put down a token, you need to follow these 2 rules. If it is next to a token of a different color, so if you put a gold token next to a silver token or vice versa, they must have the exact same number, 19, for example. If they are the same color, a gold token next to a gold token or a silver token next to a silver token, that number must be +1 or ± the number token that you put down. Those are the 2 rules that you must follow. You only need to satisfy one of those 2. So if you put down a token in between 2 other tokens, then you can satisfy either or. It's up to you. And then you do 5 in a row, and whoever makes a 5 in a row wins. There's a cool little piece design aspect of this game because, as you know, the tokens have colors that are kind of like suits. So you can't use the color of the token to tell which token was yours. So you have to put the token in a little crown that's colored by your color, and then you put that crown with the token in it on the board. So it's a little cool little piece that you use. But that's the game. Now, I can't say too much about how fun that memory aspect of the game could be, because that's not really something that sounds super interesting to me, and it makes it worse because apparently that first phase takes a lot longer than the second phase, which the second phase seems a lot more interesting, actually playing the game and putting down the tokens on the grid. And then, it's over in like a couple minutes, and then you have to go back to the drafting phase and set up again. I don't know about that. I mean, I'd have to try it to really judge it, but that's King's Crown. The second game in Lee Sedol's board game line is called Great Kingdom. Now, this is really the most Go-esque board game that I have talked about today. Great Kingdom is pretty much capture Go. So this is played on a 9x9 grid, and the pieces are like little castles that you put down. And you have blue and red. And if you capture a piece a la Go, so you put 4 red castles around a blue castle orthogonally, that blue castle is taken off the board and you win. So it's like capture Go. But that's not the only point of the game. Unlike Capture Go, there's also a territory element. So the way you claim territory in this game is you have to draw a line of your own colored pieces using 1, 2, or 3 sides of the board to claim the territory. And that territory must be completed in order for it to count. So a line from one edge to the other edge of the board I think counts as territory for at least one of the sides. You can go across a corner in a diagonal. You can do that inefficient thing on the side where you build 3 walls around it, or just a triangle around it. Those all count as territory. However, you can't claim territory that has a neutral piece, you can't claim a territory. I'm having trouble saying this. You can't claim a territory that has your opponent's piece inside of it. So while you're drawing this territorial line, your opponent starts putting a piece down inside of your territory. Basically, that whole territory is bunk. You can't do it. And when you do it, it just doesn't count as territory. Nothing's captured inside. And so what you have to do is you have to go to capture that piece. And maybe that's the reason why you don't want to put your stone. It's not a stone. It's a castle. You don't want to put your castle inside their territory. So, it's very, very Go-like. So that territory rule only comes into play if no captures are made the entire game and all the borders are drawn. Then you count who has more territory. Otherwise, if there's a single capture, like I said, it's game over. So it's like a Go mod, I think. And, obviously, if you've never played Go before, you're just going to think it's some new game. One other thing about this that's unique, there is a neutral piece in the middle that you can use to make territory with. In the Tengen of the 9x9 grid, it's a neutral piece. You can make territory with it, or I think it kind of acts like a wall in the middle. But yeah, that's Great Kingdom, and it's pretty much Go. It's definitely designed by a Go player. So that's Great Kingdom. And the third and final game I'm going to talk about is called 9 Nights. And if you're very, very intelligent, you'll know, or you'll have guessed, that this game features 9 nights. 9 nights per player, at least. Each night on your rank gets a hidden number. You choose these like little number things, and you slide them in the back of the pieces, and they have that number on them. And then you randomly arrange them on your rank to start the game. Your opponent does the same thing. So each of your knights has a randomly assigned number from 1 to 9, and each of your opponent's knights have numbers randomly assigned from 1 to 9. And then each of your back ranks also gets a number assigned. And so you have these knights with hidden numbers, and then a back rank with numbers that are showing from 1 to 9. And the goal is to get your knight to the matching back rank. So let's say a 7 knight goes to the 7 back rank of the game, of the board, you win the game. That's basically the main win condition, and you take turns moving. And they don't move like knights, they just move like kings, I think, in chess. But you can fight. That's what makes it interesting. You can fight each other by comparing the numbers. The higher number wins, but if the difference between the two numbers is only 1, the lower number wins. So 7 beats 8. 6 loses to 8. 8 loses, or actually, I think there's a special rule. Again, I haven't played this game, so I'm not super familiar with the rules, but I believe there's a special rule saying that 9's... Oh, okay, so I think, here it is. 8's beat 9, but 1 also beats 9. So 1 is a special number, that kind of like an assassin number that beats the high number. So 8's are considered very powerful because there is no such number that defeats the 8, unlike the 9, which can be defeated by a 1. So when you knock out these knights, you reveal your opponent's numbers, assigned numbers for their knights, and you get more and more information as the game plays out as you try to put one of your knights to the back rank that matches. So I think it feels to me like a big bluffing game where you try to trick your opponent into thinking that you're going for a certain route for a certain knight, and they're taking the bait and things like that. Seems like a lot of mind games. And so that's 9 knights, and those are the 3 kind of kingdom-themed board games designed by Sedol. And the way I was able to find out about the rules of these games was a lovely video from the Dice Tower. I don't know if you've heard of them, but they are a big board game review, let's play kind of YouTube channel and website. They also have all these like stickers on board games saying Dice Tower Essentials or something like that, right? So they're huge in the board game world. But they went through all of these games, and their their favorite was 9 Knights. And I'll link the video in the description for you guys to check out if you want to get more into detail of like how they look, how the specific rules. They go into they do a lot better of a job than I did, basically, of explaining the rules, because they've actually played the game and they do this for a living. But they also mentioned Through the Desert, which was the game mentioned by Mouton, who contributed to the idea for this episode. Thank you again. But that game was mentioned, and I looked into it, and apparently it's super Go-like, and I didn't realize how Go-like it was, that like in the description of the Board Game Geek website of Through the Desert, it actually says, a lot of people say it's reminiscent of Go. And I didn't know what playing Go with a camel meant, because in Through the Desert, you use camels, like you use little camel pieces to play, and it's like you're playing Go with camels. But when I read that, I thought like you were playing Go against a camel. So I thought, like, how do you make a board game that feels like you're playing Go against a camel? And I was so confused, and then it made so much more sense, and I felt pretty dumb thinking that, like, anyway. So that's the Dice Tower's coverage of the Sedol board games. That's how I was able to find out about them and learn all the rules to them. So that I'll link that again in the description. So I hope you enjoyed my little overview of Go-esque board games. I'm going to keep an eye out for any more that I come across. But now it's time for the DDK Advice Corner, and the tip of the day is, ask yourself, can I get more? Think Oliver Twist. When your opponent plays a big move that looks pretty sente, like, oh wow, there's no way I'm going to let my opponent just have that. Ask yourself, can I get more? Can I get more than what my opponent is asking for? Usually like an attack or a sente move of some kind, your opponent's asking for something like, hey, are you going to, after I Hane here, are you going to let me extend? Or after I capture this stone, you're going to let me, connect up here? And your instinct will tell you, no, I can't let you connect, I must cut. Or no, I can't let you extend, I must Hane back. But before you do that, ask yourself, wait a second, can I get more than that? If I just let you do what you want to do, is there something bigger on the board? Please ask yourself this question, because it's a very important question to ask if you want to get stronger. Ask yourself, can I get more? And now it's time for listener mail. Michael writes, in response to episode 78, Empty Triangle Math. Hello, Justin. Replying to your question about math/geometry in Go, I discovered a way to learn shapes for myself using a kind of equation. I did it like this. There are extensions that by definition are 2 stones. These are Nobi, the 1 space jump, 2 space jump, 3 space jump, Knight's Move, Large Knight's Move, Kosumi, Elephant's Eye. Now I used these extensions to build a sort of an equation for shapes. For example, dog face equals 1 space jump plus 2 Knight's Move. That makes sense to me. A tiger's mouth equals 2 Kosumis plus 1 space jump. Okay, I'm on board with this. Ponuki, 4 Kosumis plus 1 space jump. 2 1 space jumps. Okay, I see this. Yes, I think I can definitely relate to that. When you start seeing what a Knight's Move is, you start seeing what Knight's Moves in conjunction with other moves looks like, and then that's what creates this library and dictionary of shapes in your head. So I really like the way you put it here. Continuing, I think breaking things down like this helped me internalize them. They also let me know what possible shapes could be coming up in the future by what extensions are on the board. I'll let you figure out some of the others, and feel free to talk about other shapes. Bamboo joints and mouth shapes are really fun to figure out. Would love to know your thoughts on this. Please keep up the good work. Love the podcast. Well, thank you so much, Michael, and thank you for writing in. Let me figure out the bamboo joint here. So the bamboo joint is 2 Nobis and 2 1 space jumps, 2 Knight's Moves, I think. Am I right? You tell me. But that's interesting. I like that. There's like, in such a simple shape of just 4 stones, there's this network of connections that you could make. Again, thanks for writing in. Rio Kai writes, One additional reason empty triangles are bad shape is that not only are they fewer liberties, and often useful liberties, as you'll frequently end up needing to fill your own liberties and the related shapes too, but also, comparing them to a 3-stone line, they are 1 line fewer reaching across the board in terms of connecting to other stones. A 6 to 5 liberty difference doesn't seem like much, but when you also need to spend an entire extra move to connect, you end up 1 move behind in the fighting even more in terms of capturing race. That can be thought of as a minus another liberty, making the difference more like 6 to 4 rather than 6 to 5. Good point. The reach of your stones is very important. And also note that Go is a game of patience, and it's like a marathon where you have so many moves, 200-300 moves in a game. So all of these little moves and these little inefficiencies, they add up and determine the winner of the game. Thank you for your thoughts, Ryokai, and thanks for writing in. Wampy writes, I think back on the quote you mentioned in chess being a battle and Go being a war, and it got my brain churning again on how to create a Go plus chess variant. I had thought before on it and didn't come up with a good way, though we all know a 9x9 board would fit both on it. If you guys don't know, you can take a chessboard or checkers board, and then look at the 8x8 grid on the chessboard, and if you look at it another way, it's a 9x9 grid of lines, and you can play Go with the chess or checkers pieces. Continuing, after thinking a bit more, first I thought if you cut an opponent, maybe you get to do a chess move. But then thinking that is not frequently enough, maybe. So maybe if you take 1 or more liberties from your opponent's stone, you get to do a chess move. Your opponent could respond or not, I guess, by taking a liberty and then playing a chess move. It would be possible if one or the other plays away, the same person could make 2 or more chess moves in a row. Make it so the overall Go game is worth more than the chess game, as I could see people playing more chess games than Go games per overall game. I think I'm sort of following what you're saying here. It seems that you're using the chess movement abilities to place stones down. I'm not sure. I think that's the part I'm not sure about, whether you're suggesting the stones actually move like a chess piece, or you put down a stone in relation to the stone that you just put down as a chess piece would. But either way, that's an interesting. I think I can kind of see that you're a bit of a brainstormer, Wampy. I've seen this happen before. This way could be interesting, maybe in a way, be giving up more by attaching and trying to fight on the chessboard versus taking extra territory. Thoughts? Well, I think it reminds me of like the Cards Go game, so the variant, so having to use specific shapes on the board. I wonder, I think when I think about chess versus Go, I kind of see it the other way around, where I start with the chess pieces moving around, and then if they surround a certain piece, then they take it off the board or something like that. But yeah, they seem pretty difficult to try to use. Maybe it's like Go, but you have special Go stones that are either knights or bishops, or I don't know. There's a lot of ideas I think we can think of. Thanks for your fun thoughts, Wampy. Bamafric says, thank you. You're very welcome. My boy says, going off what you're talking about on analogies of Go, I think of the game as 2 microbe colonies or slime molds competing for more nutrients in a petri dish. The way the stones spread and solidify is so organic. I play against myself a lot, and it certainly doesn't feel like I'm commanding 2 armies. The stones decide where to grow. I've definitely thought that before. 2 microbe colonies. That's exactly what it feels like to me. Just these organic shapes spreading and stuff. And the image of you playing against yourself, it makes me feel like you're kind of some lab student looking at this petri dish, just watching and poking at these organisms growing across the board. So that's a fun way to describe it. Thank you for contribution, my boy. And then finally, Sadaharu writes, empty triangle equals bad is just something taught into people learning Go since last time, and I never thought about it from the maths perspective. Talking about maths, I wrote a post a long time ago about why the board size of 19 by 19 gives the perfect balance between territory and influence. I don't think it was the real number for 19, the number 19, but it was a very interesting coincidence. I may try to dig out the post if I have time. If we're talking about geometry, golden ratio is very prevalent in nature, so it will be interesting to see an application of the golden ratio in Go as well. A couple of comments here. So I may have actually stumbled across that post you made, Sadaharu, because I remember being very curious why it's 19 by 19 and going into a forum to find the answer, and I found a good answer, and it possibly may have been yours. And I do like to think that it kind of converged on 19 by 19 because of the balance of the game in terms of territory and influence. But I think there is also that theory of like 361, very close to 365 days. But I don't know. I think Go players would care more about gameplay than like the lore of the game. So I like to think, I mean, it's great. 19 by 19, it's the perfect size for the game of Go. So I like the number 19 for it. And then the golden ratio comment, I wanted to say that I wonder if as we play Go, the golden ratio appears in some way on the board, especially in like professional play. Like, does the golden ratio somehow come out in the game? I don't know. That would be interesting. So I wonder if that's what you're thinking, or along the same lines. So thanks for writing in, Sadaharu, and thanks to all of you who write in to Listener Mail. The question of the week this week is, what are some of your favorite board games that are not Go? It doesn't have to be like Go, but if it is like Go, tell us how it is like Go. But what are some of your favorite board games? I'd love to know. I love board games, and I'm always looking out for recommendations. So if you want to share your thoughts on that question, or you have some other Go thing you want to talk about, or want to ask me something, leave a comment, or you can email me directly at starpointbaduk@gmail.com. That's starpointbaduk@gmail.com. If you're a YouTube listener, I would greatly appreciate a like and a subscribe. And if you're a podcast listener, reviews and ratings also help. A very, very special thank you to James B. and Tristan for supporting Starpoint. And if you want to support the show in any capacity, you can go to ko-fi.com/starpointbaduk. That's ko-fi, or go to the Starpoint store and get some Starpoint merch at store.starpointbaduk.com. So, one other thing that I've been playing that's not a board game, but kind of had me thinking about Go, is the Pokemon trading card game Pocket app on my phone. I've been kind of grinding the versus mode, and as I play more and as I get more into the game, I see myself reading in my head what possible moves could be made, and that really comes from my ability to play Go. And if you think, oh, it's just Pokemon, how complicated could it be? Well, let me give you an example. If my opponent's Darkrai X retreats and plays Giratina X in the active spots, attaches one dark energy to Darkrai to activate Nightmare Aura to do 20 damage to my Melmetal, then Giratina X uses Chaotic Impact to attack for 130, but is actually only 110 because of Melmetal's Hard Coat, which takes 20 off the damage, and also doing 20 damage to itself due to Chaotic Impact's effect. Do I survive, first of all, and is Giratina X low enough to knock out with Heavy Impact for 120 on the next turn? If I can't knock it out, does Giratina X knock itself out due to the 20 damage to itself while trying to knock me out with another attack in the following turn? If it does, can he retreat Giratina instead of putting Darkrai back into play? And at that point, what are the odds that I draw my Cyrus, which allows me to put the weak Giratina back into the active spot, in the remaining 8 cards I have in the deck, while also considering Professor Oaks, which allow me to draw more cards and then draw a Cyrus? If you didn't get all that, let me translate that into Go terms. If I go here, 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 Hane, extend, here, 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 here. Thanks for listening. Keep playing Go.